Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the Wakelet podcast. Michael here, tuning in from Manchester in the United Kingdom, back again with another episode of the mini-series within the podcast, The Journeys That We're On. In this series, we've been speaking to entrepreneurs, founders and all-round hustlers about what it takes to achieve and to be successful. We've had people like Leon Lloyd, Grace Fella, Tisha Poncio from the Wakelet team as well, and we have a really inspiring guest here today working in the sustainability field, and we'll be speaking about sustainable eating. Is the founder of Nommm, Heather Mitchell. Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. And yeah, we'll try not bore people too much about sustainable eating today.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. And from the research that I've done and the conversations that I've had with people that know you, it seems like your story has been really inspiring so far. And of course, the concept of sustainability is going to be pivotal in the future of all of our lives. So I think we can really get some powerful insight into what's required, and I'm sure the story that you've had so far and the journey that you've been on will be really interesting to all of our listeners. So let's jump in. Can you tell us a little bit more about Nommm and what it is essentially?
Yeah, so at Nommm we provide climate impact labelling across the food industry. So we provide labels across 5 set parameters: land, occupation, water usage, global warming potential, seasonality, energy efficiency, and then on the side we've got our own bespoke calculation on protein efficiency. Essentially, we work with anything from recipe bloggers to restaurants to stores and brands, and we also develop a lot of our own low climate impact recipes as well. So yeah, that's what Nommm is. We have our own app as well, which is where people can access those recipes and cook them at home. And as I say, with the main difference being that it's not just a standalone nutritional label, but also you can see the environmental impact of your food as well.
Awesome. Wow, that sounds like a really, really necessary product. So very, very exciting. And by the time that this podcast is out, the beta version of the app will be released. So I'm sure if anyone is interested to jump on and get involved and test it out and play around with the app, play around with the website, I think that would be really, really powerful. And it'd be an opportunity for people to be part of the movement as well. So I definitely encourage everyone to get involved and check it out.
Can be accessed across Android and iPhone as well, and we also have a web version. So yeah, get in contact with us through our website or any kind of social media, and yeah, we'd love to share the beta app with you.
Awesome, and we'll include every link as always with these podcasts. We have a Wakelet collection, and every link and every resource that we speak about on this podcast, you can check it out there. So definitely check it out. So I think with these podcasts, it's often the case we want to understand the personality, understand the kind of mentality people have in their journeys to try and setting up businesses and to be successful. So I'd really like to just take it back to the start and maybe go back to your experience in your undergrad, in your university. It was international relations is what you studied. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I studied at University of Birmingham. I did international relations and loved it. I don't really have a massive political background in my family or anything, so I think everybody was like, "Are you going to be a politician? Like what are you doing with this new food business? Thought you studied politics." But one thing I will say about international relations is that it's such a good stepping stone to essentially understanding the world, I would say. And so I think that it's a big part of my journey anyway, because I think it enabled me to like anything from policy to lobbying to, NGO work and work on the ground, all the way to an individual perspective. I feel international relations is a really good overview of how we work in the world. And yeah, from business to politics to personal life. So yeah, I loved studying that. And then from my undergrad, I started work in PR, so public relations. Again, of course, with international relations, it was, necessary to understand how people gather information and how people understand and are communicated to. So I started working in environmental PR for National Environment Research Council. And yeah, absolutely loved that. And I guess that's where my passion for sustainability began.
Awesome. That's amazing. And I listened to a podcast that you were on with one of the colleagues here at Wakelet. Sam runs a podcast that's all about sustainability. Something that really excited me was hearing that you've worked on behalf of Sir David Attenborough. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so like Boaty McBoatface, the whole classic naming of that partnership. So I worked for British Antarctic Survey, who do really, really good environmental work. Of course, if you want to measure the environmental impact on the earth, the best place to go is where there's no humans. So It was really, really great working for them. And then they named a royal research ship after Sir David Attenborough. So we kind of organized this huge event, and we were in charge of, kind of booking him into meetings and interviews. And it was amazing. It was really nice kind of firsthand to see. I mean, number one, I think, he's obviously pretty shocked sometimes to hear how revered he is, and it's definitely, he's very, very humble, and so it was just an honor really to organize that event. I know the people on the ship wanted to have like a bronze plated kind of figurine of him, and he was just like, absolutely not. He was just like, no, it was like, that's so, he was like, no, because obviously I guess for him, he's so, he's somebody who has a vested interest in environmentalism, so I think that he doesn't want to overcrowd that. He wants to keep the message at the forefront, which is, we need more people like that. Really, I guess working in the environmental space isn't a space to make yourself like a bit of fame. It's not like everybody is kind of in it for the greater good.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Sir David Attenborough is such a leading figurehead, and of course, COP26. He spoke on that, and obviously is one of the most outspoken people. It must have been really inspiring to be close to him and to get an insight into what his priorities are. Was that a big influence?
It was definitely inspiring. What was really nice is that in organizing the event, I think that the good thing about David Attenborough is that sometimes things like extinction like groups and kind of other young environmental groups sometimes get a little bit of a bad name, of course, and even recently people blocking cars and things like that on the road. It's kind of frustrating because people get frustrated at those movements instead of annoyingly getting frustrated at the overall issue. And I think Sir David Attenborough, of course, is like a great bridge between people who aren't necessarily big into the environment. I think he's quite a good neutral character, should I say? Do you know what I mean? So if anything, using bridges like that is really good to get across an environmental message, because sometimes people are very, a little bit harsh with XR and things like that, and they don't want to listen. So I'm all for how much, and I think he understands that. I think he knows that he's a bridge to, especially an older community as well. My mum, she cares about the environment, of course, but like she's all for watching his videos because she's like, oh, cute animals, and that then leads her into the conversation of environmentalism. So I think that bridge, as I say, it bridges the gap, and it makes people a little bit more soft to the conversation, which is what we need.
Yeah, and I think that's the appeal for me about Sir David Attenborough is how accessible he is for multiple generations. Because I think, of course, it's a lot of younger generations now are really, like, I think a defining feature of the culture of younger generations is activism for climate change and sustainability generally. Whereas I think David Attenborough does a fantastic job of engaging everybody. Like, everybody can look up to him, and his wisdom and expertise I seem to be really sparking a movement that's powerful. And I think on the topic of movements generally, and you mentioned the kind of activism that perhaps isn't really the best approach if it's people kind of stopping traffic or getting involved in just hostile or potentially toxic kind of activism. The movement that David Attenborough and yourself seem to be really sparking is much more positive and logical and achievable as well. So it's kind of going off in a tangent slightly, but the concept of a movement, is that something that engages you? Is that something that you're interested in?
Definitely. I, like so many others, have for years, starting off from political anxiety to climate anxiety, have suffered with it all because, it's really hard to be so engaged And of course, it's great. I follow so many publications about the environment, and I follow so many people. But then, you blur the line between like social media for fun and whatever, and then just actually I'm constantly reading like the news or everywhere I go, everywhere I look. So for me, getting like having a movement and in my way getting involved in like a green business was the only way really to actually make me feel like I was doing something about it, because I think if not, I was just spiraling. And I always say to my friends who are, kind of anxious about the environment, I literally say the best thing that you could do is like get involved with a group or not best thing you can do is start a business, but like get involved with a startup or anything like that, because then, I mean, probably for selfish reasons, but then you don't feel so like hopeless, and it makes, the good thing is that through doing Nommm, I've met a lot more good people than I have bad, really. So I definitely think it's reinforced for me that like it's a movement that's making both myself not feel better, that's really bad, but making myself feel more connected basically to environmentalism,
I really like that. The concept of being connected to taking action. And I can certainly relate, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners can relate to the fact that there's so much information and there's so much coverage, especially now that COP26 is coming to an end. There's so much information and it's very relevant, but it seems like there's nothing actually happening, and no one's being told exactly what can you do to have an impact. So I think taking action obviously is something that you've done in abundance, but I would definitely encourage everybody to take action, even if it's just a small step. So I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, and even if it's just to remind yourself, because like when if you're sat there one night and you see all this stuff happening, it's really hard to then especially visually, it's hard to see that other people are sharing your thoughts. And actually there's millions of businesses, millions of organizations and non-profits that are doing something about it. It's just sometimes at the forefront of a news article you don't see that. So even if it's just to remind yourself that, like, because I think that's one thing about the environment that we constantly have to remind ourselves that people are doing something about it. Like I saw a headline after COP26 that was just like, here's why I don't believe COP26 has made a difference. And it was like, that's great, but also like, what do you want me to do with that?
Yeah.
I don't know what to quite do with the article. It was just, I didn't even read it. I was literally just like, great.
Yeah, the kind of clickbaity articles that just seem to cause a lot of white noise around the concept, when what really needs to happen is taking action. So yeah, I can understand that element of frustration. I'm interested, now that you've obviously been operating in this circle and in this industry for quite some time now, how would you analyze the landscape? In the UK, I guess, is where you're operating mostly. What's the landscape like? Are you encouraged? Are you worried? What kind of reaction have you had?
I mean, we've had like a really, really good reaction to what we're doing. I think it's because we are so unique in what we're doing. And I think that, as I say, because there's so many frustrations with environmental activism, I think that people are constantly looking for something different. So I think, we kind of are, we've got a benefit in terms of that, because people, especially people of the older generations who have been seeing some kind of climate action for donkey's years, they're just a bit like, it's really refreshing for them to see something different. But equally, I mean, we've had, it's difficult. We've had some feedback that's like, okay, climate impact labels, they should be coming from the government and they should be government mandated. And it's like, that's great. And I agree, at some point, I would love it to be a thing where it's normalized to the point where it's the law for companies and for restaurants to show the climate impact. However, there's a lot of revolving door, like the government at the end of the day to honestly show the climate impact of giants like Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's. They're like contrasting things. It wouldn't happen, or if it would be extremely hard to get transparency. And I think that's the main thing what people are looking for in terms of the landscape. Like, people just want transparency. Of course, greenwashing is such a huge thing. So our response to that is that our team and the credentials that we have make us feel we are in a good place to provide the information, even just to serve as an educational tool, right? This, it's a guideline. Often measures of sustainability contrast and aren't, they're not perfect, mainly because sustainability doesn't particularly have a definition that fits. Sustainability of a society can sometimes go against sustainability of a specific process or a specific food. So I think, if anything, it's just better to have more cooks in the kitchen almost to flesh out that standardization, because you can't just pick out of thin air. You need lots of different companies to come together to then get a standardization in the future. But yeah, landscape is hopeful, I would say. I do always still think it's hopeful. It's just sometimes hard to see it unless you're working in it.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's really encouraging. And I think the element of having as many cooks in the kitchen as possible, I really like. And at Wakelet, we like to think that we're sparking a movement from our side as well. There are educators all around the world that get engaged with the Wakelet community. And I think we really look to share positivity, support, so that it really is a massive ecosystem where people can really feel part of something. And I think that has really helped Wakelet become more popular and helped Wakelet grow. It's been really inspiring to see the kind of work that the community has done on our behalf. And I guess that ties in very much with the movement that you are creating. In terms of a community among people that potentially are going to be using Nommm, what kind of significance do you think that that's going to have for you?
Yeah, community is a huge part of what we're doing, especially because we're trying to normalize something. So of course, for anything to be adopted in a widespread way, we need that systematic enforcement in community, that actually this is a systematic change. It's not just a change just for food, it's a change of the food system, which naturally is a change of our political and societal system as a whole. So communities is our only way at success, really. We need communities to adopt it, share it. I remember, what was it? I think it was Too Good to Go, or a company like that. They started off literally just asking kind of door to door in their local neighborhood, if you've got a piece of food this week that's going to go off, put it on a WhatsApp group with everybody else in the community, to basically prove their concept. And of course, by the end of the week, everyone had swapped loads and loads of food. So, it's things like that. Community, especially from a business perspective, is one of the best ways to, of course, prove that you're building something that is actually useful and that people love. But then equally, from an activism point of view, as I say, yeah, we need community to adopt this normalized way of a change in the system, which, yeah.
Great. Oh, that's really cool. And I think obviously community is such a massive part. What I'd really like to jump into now, Heather, is understanding, I think, your personality and what kind of journey that you've been on. We have had a bit of background now, but in terms of running a business, everyone that I've spoken to is clear that running a business is a challenging thing that is relentless as well. What kind of mentality do you think is required to be resilient and keep going at it and fighting through challenges to achieve your goals?
Yeah. Sorry to tell you that I'm not going to tell you anything apart from, yes, it is relentless and hard. But in a good way, I don't know, I think one thing that, a lot of, especially the startup world, it's quite male dominated, and it's definitely something that it's made me feel that the personality traits that I think people stressed that I needed to have at the beginning made me not as good at running the business as I could have been, I think, because I was trying to be okay, you have to be super analytical, and in conversations with investors or anything like that, you have to be, really kind of stale-faced, very strong. And actually, as I've got into more female circles of the entrepreneurial world, it's kind of definitely instilled in me that I think being emotional is actually a really important personality trait that really is kind of downtrodden because it's a feminine trait. However, to run a business, especially one that you care about, people almost pretend that they don't care about their business because they're trying to be so non-emotional, but really actually you've created something and you've worked your arse off for something because you care about it behind it. And I think that especially acquiring different customers or partnerships or anything like that, for me, running a business and even managing people, right? I think that my team, hopefully I can comment on this if they disagree, but I think that my team like the way that we work because I care about, I care about them. I care about how they're feeling about a task and a project, anything from small as that to asking them what they think about the business direction, So I think that being emotional and actually showing people that you have emotions is an important thing, and it keeps you sane as well. I think that I had some struggles and, you know, kind of burnout periods when I was just trying desperately to come across as if I knew what I was doing at all points, which I absolutely don't.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I can personally relate to that. And I think a lot of the educators that are in the Wakelet community and the listeners today will have experienced challenges that kind of make it very difficult to keep going and to maintain a certain level of positivity, especially during COVID. I think with lockdown and the challenges that people have been facing, it's really, really difficult. But I really like the importance that you put on emotion. And I think in terms of leadership, it's a really key trait, because if someone's emotional and passionate and show that they care, I'm more likely to buy in, whether it's me working for someone or if it's me getting involved in a movement and engaging with a product or service. If there's a clear element of emotion and passion there, I'm much more likely to engage. So I think in terms of your team and in terms of leadership, how big is your team right now? Who do you have working with you?
Oh, do I give that away? No, we have a small team. So, I mean, probably about 6 or 7 core members of the team. So I have, so I've got a tech co-founder who handles kind of the build of the product. And then we obviously have our data and sustainability team of researchers who kind of do the core research and development of our labels. I've got an awesome social media representative and then some great recipe developers. So that's kind of the core of our team. But what's really nice is that actually we're getting, you know, volunteers come through all the time, like people who want to help. And I would put in this podcast as well, like I'm always open to working with people, like other businesses, collaborations, but also people, students, anybody who has an interest. There's always a place for you. We're always in need of help. But that's the team.
Great. Oh, cool. And what is leadership to you? What do you really, I mean, you mentioned emotion. Is there anything else that you'd encapsulate good leadership as?
I think sometimes, I guess sometimes as a leader, I guess one of the big things that I found that other founders have also agreed with, like struggling in like delegation, right? If you've created something, because I created this pretty much by myself for the first 6 months. And, you know, I soon realized that I absolutely could not carry on doing something by yourself. But I think it's just really difficult, of course, to outsource certain jobs and responsibilities when it's your own business, especially. But I think it's the best thing you can do. You've got to let go a little bit. Otherwise, to avoid those burnout periods, really. So you just need to find people more than anything that you can trust. People can learn skills, you know what I mean? Like if you find somebody that you can trust and that you actually relate to on another level apart from just their skill set, I think that sets you up for a good working relationship, because you could find someone who's massively skilled up who stays like this, or you can find someone who's like really willing to learn and you can trust them and they'll learn like that, you know, and they'll learn a lot. Don't know if we're videoing this, right? It's just doing hand gestures. But I just think that then you can grow at a lot quicker speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. And is it the value of empowerment? Is that something that you bear in mind when interacting with people that you're working alongside?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all of the people that I work with, I say like, you know, my God, you're so talented. And, you know, I really want them to know that I couldn't have done it without them. Especially because being a leader is different skills. Like being a leader doesn't mean you have to then be completely skilled up in every single department. You know, like I can't design anything, you know, things like that. So the people that I work with, I definitely want them to feel empowered and actually, you know, kind of grow themselves individually alongside the project.
It must be a great journey to experience that. Is that something that you've enjoyed, kind of understanding different personalities and what kind of communication is appropriate for one person might be very different to another person? Is that a part of a learning experience that you've had in your journey?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love that, you know, going back to international relations, of course, like my main joy is to really understand how people communicate and how they're communicated to. And I love like collaboration and working with lots of different people. Like half of our team are working like in all different parts of the world. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting. One funny thing is that we have a time. So one of the guys that works for us lives in Australia. So I'm talking to him at 6 o'clock in the morning or like 10 o'clock at night. But yeah, I love to understand that. I mean, it's definitely a hurdle to get over. I think that it's very easy to, quickly jump into working with someone and not take the time to be like, how can I best give you this task, or like, how can I best check up on you? So yeah, I think that's important in kind of all different jobs, startup or proper business. And a lot of businesses don't take the time to do it. But yeah.
Awesome. Oh, that's really fascinating. I think the one thing that has definitely been consistent with every person or entrepreneur that I've spoken to is their interest and intrigue in people, and endeavoring to understand people and what kind of communication is appropriate in different personality types, and how to get the best out of one person might be very different to how to get the best out of another person. So I certainly find that very interesting. So thank you for sharing that. I'm interested in culture and business culture. What kind of culture do you think Nommm has, and what kind of culture are you creating right now?
Definitely one of, like, I guess what I'm constantly trying to keep at the forefront is why we're doing it. And, the kind of major movement that we're a part of. And, I think sometimes you can get caught up with different things going on in a business. And different opportunities. And I think that like, I'm very interested in not moving really, really, really quickly and taking on anything I can just to get the best out of the business in a way. Like I'm definitely, I don't know, I have a culture of like, I want to talk to people in the business and understand, is there something we could take on? Is there something that's going to give us value? rather than just like seeing an exciting, glittering opportunity and being like, okay, yeah, let's do it. I think that then you just push your team over the edge. And also it's not, there's a lot of people in this space who are very interested in the financial sides of a business. And obviously for us, like what we really want to keep at our core is that we are essentially business and activism, right? That's essentially what we're trying to do. So I think, always keeping that at the core is like a big part of our culture. And being open and honest, like I want people to, of course, like I'm running the business, but I equally, I don't come up with all the ideas. Do you know what I mean? So I just really want to keep that culture of like idea sharing. And like, sometimes I'll just ring up one of the people just to brainstorm something, and I really want to keep it that way, even if we grow to more people. And even if we grow quickly, I want to keep that at the core of that we're like a team.
Yeah. Awesome. I really like that. Something that we like to do on these podcasts, but the last kind of sections of the discussion is going to be some quick fire questions, if that's okay. I'll jump in with, who inspires you? Who do you look up to?
Who do I look up to? This is actually a weird one, but I would honestly say like one of my bosses, like in the past. Like, I mean, it's not one that everyone can relate to, but I think that I learned so much startup strategy off them. And I really I can't stress enough how much I've mirrored a lot of my my strategy in my own business off what I experienced there. And that was an awesome thing to like. And every single time I really do think like, what would he do? And like, what did he do in that situation? And so, I think that's been like a big person I actually look up to. I won't name names, but I always do think about him, and I do think about, what he's taught me.
Great. Really like that. Second question is, what does a typical day look like in your life?
It looks like pretty much, I don't know, lots of things. Of course, when you're a founder, you're pretty much, the accountant team, the marketing, like the design. So I've pretty much got, 15 to 20 tabs open on my laptop. And luckily, we're a digital business. So for me, a lot of the time I'll work from home, but I'll be hopping on calls with people. I like to reach out to a lot of businesses pretty much daily because, we are new, we are young. So we're trying to really get the word out there as much as we can. Kind of brainstorming social media strategies. Developing recipes. I'm often filming myself cook recipes, which is great. I'm often, getting sent these recipes and then trying them out myself. So yeah, that's probably a day in the life. Eating too much and working too late. There you go.
Sounds good. I like that. Can you tell me something that you've learned about recently, or something new that you've discovered?
Something new I've discovered since starting Nommm, or just
generally even.
Something new I've discovered. I mean, of course, like I have a background in sustainability, but more my background is sustainability, like sustainable communications. So working with, of course, people whose literal job it is to research the data has been like mind blowing for me. Like I think, it's been so startling to see actually that, it's something like if everyone ate like beef in a meal 3 times a day, we'd run out of land in like 20 years. So facts like that, I'm like, oh God. So it's been actually really nice for me to properly kind of delve into the data side of things. And yeah, I learn something new, honestly, every day by people who are working on our labels, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I can definitely relate to that experience. There's so many people that work at Wakelet that are really passionate about sustainability and have all these little facts and ideas about how people can improve. So I think research is really important. I think everyone should, or perhaps even has an obligation to learn more about it, research, and we'll share a bunch of resources in the collection attached to this podcast. So I think everybody can be inspired by that. So that's cool. And last question is, what does the future hold?
The future holds, I'm just going to be really cringe and just say hope. I just feel like not enough people hear it enough, from especially people who work in the climate space. I feel that, as I said, with that COP26 article, I'm not seeing enough that actually, I think I even sometimes Google like good news. And, there's so many of those little publications that do kind of, good news every day. But yeah, the future definitely holds hope. Like, as I say, in the last year, I think there's been a massive surge of people starting up environmental companies, including myself. I mean, we only started October 2020. And I went on a climate accelerator at NatWest, and there was like thousands of companies, do you know what I mean, starting up. And as you say, the younger generation, activism is so part of their core like traits as a generation. So I just do think like I cannot see it, at least I can't see it going backwards. Do you know what I mean? I can only see it going forward and pushing forward. And the earth will always rejuvenate itself. Like, people might die, but the good thing is that the earth and the environment will always look after itself, and the environment, and trees will grow again. Do you know what I mean? And it will look after itself. So I guess I always keep that close to my heart, that, whilst we may be the problem, the earth will be just fine.
Great. So be hopeful, be positive. Everybody should join the movement, learn more about it, play your part, take action, I think is what I'm gathering from this conversation. Heather, thanks so much. Your story is genuinely inspiring, and I wish you all the best. And I encourage everybody to check Nommm out. Do you want to just do a quick run through of different social media accounts, websites, how they can get involved in the beta testing of the app? As of the 25th of November, that's when the app will be available to get involved in. So do you want to just do a quick few call outs to where people can find more information?
Yeah, so our website is just www.nommm.co.uk. It is with 3 M's. I often get people messaging with 2 M's. Funny story, I tried to register with 2 M's and it wouldn't let me. So there's 3. Cool. But yeah, Instagram is just Nommm_app. Our LinkedIn is, Nommm app. And you can find us on our website. If you go to the page Your Thoughts, you can sign up for our beta testing. Alternatively, you can just email in at hello@nommm.co.uk. Or literally just reply to one of our stories on Instagram and say you'd like to take part in beta.
Awesome. That is great. And I know I've said this a couple of times, but all of the links will be attached to this podcast. So I highly encourage everybody to get involved. I certainly will be getting involved to be a part of the movement. I think it's an opportunity for people, and to be part of something that really will pave for change. So yeah, very exciting times. Thank you very much, Heather, for jumping on the podcast today. And thank you to our incredible community for listening. Feel free to share your feedback, share your ideas on social media, both with Nommm and with Wakelet. @Wakelet is what we're called on social media. So thanks very much, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.